Over 2,000 years ago, in the eastern Mediterranean region, a teacher from a small town called Nazareth did something remarkable. Jesus of Nazareth, as he was known, walked up a hillside and began to speak to a crowd. This wasn't a gathering of powerful elites or wealthy landowners. Instead, it was a group of the marginalized, those the world often ignored or oppressed. Among them were the poor, the sick, and those burdened by Roman occupation, forced to pay heavy taxes to an empire that cared little for their struggles. These people, considered insignificant by society, became the audience for one of the most profound teachings in human history, the Sermon on the Mount. What Jesus said to them wasn't just inspiring, it was revolutionary. He offered a vision of a new world order, a reality where the last would be first, and love, mercy, and justice would reign supreme. As Jesus looked out over the crowd, he began with words that must have sounded shocking. "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." At the time, the world was dominated by systems of power and wealth. To be poor, in spirit or otherwise, was to be seen as cursed or abandoned by God. Yet, Jesus flipped this idea on its head. He proclaimed that the kingdom of heaven, the divine reality where God's rule brings justice and peace, belonged not to the rich or powerful but to those who recognize their spiritual need. But what is this kingdom of heaven? For many, it's easy to think of heaven as a distant place, far removed from the struggles of earth. However, Jesus presented it as something breaking into the here and now. It was a vision of a world where love replaces hate, generosity conquers greed, and peace triumphs over violence. This message wasn't just hope for the future, it was a call to action. Jesus was telling this group of outcasts that they were the seeds of this new reality. The change would start with them. Jesus continued, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." In a crowd filled with people who had lost loved ones, livelihoods, and perhaps hope itself, these words must have resonated deeply. Mourning isn't just about personal loss, it's about grieving the brokenness of the world, the injustice, suffering, and pain that seems so pervasive. Jesus assured them that this sorrow would not have the final word. A time was coming when their tears would be wiped away, and joy would take their place. This wasn't a vague promise but a profound truth tied to the coming of God's kingdom, where healing and restoration would prevail. Next, Jesus said, "Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth." In a world that often rewards aggression and dominance, meekness can seem like weakness. But meekness, as Jesus described it, is not about being timid or passive. It's about strength under control, humility, and a willingness to put others before oneself. Jesus promised that those who embody this humility would one day inherit the earth. This was a radical idea, especially for a group living under Roman rule. They weren't landowners or rulers, they were the dispossessed. Yet, Jesus assured them that their quiet strength and faithfulness would one day reshape the world. Jesus then proclaimed, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." For many in the crowd, hunger and thirst weren't metaphors. They lived in poverty, struggling to meet their basic needs. But Jesus spoke of a deeper hunger, a longing for a world where justice and fairness prevailed. To hunger and thirst for righteousness is to yearn for what is right, both in our own lives and in the broader society. It's a call to action, urging people to work toward a world where wrongs are made right and everyone is treated with dignity. Jesus promised that this deep yearning would be satisfied, not by the systems of the world but by God's kingdom breaking into reality. The next three blessings Jesus shared highlighted qualities that were both challenging and transformative. He shared, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." Mercy is about showing compassion, even to those who might not deserve it. It's about forgiveness and kindness, reflecting the character of God. Jesus assured the crowd that those who extend mercy would receive it in return. Next he shared, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." Purity of heart goes beyond outward actions. It's about having intentions and motives that align with God's will. This kind of purity allows us to experience God's presence in profound ways. He also said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Peacemaking, on the other hand, is not just about avoiding conflict. It's about stepping into difficult situations to bring reconciliation and healing. In a time of Roman oppression and constant conflict, this was a bold and dangerous calling. Yet, Jesus declared that peacemakers would be known as children of God, reflecting their Father's heart. As inspiring as these blessings are, Jesus didn't shy away from the challenges they bring. He said, "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Standing up for justice, mercy, and peace often comes at a cost. Jesus warned that his followers would face opposition, ridicule, and even persecution. Yet, he urged them to rejoice, for their reward in heaven would be great. Jesus connected their struggles to the legacy of the prophets, men and women who had stood up against corruption and injustice throughout Israel's history. By aligning themselves with God's kingdom, the crowd was stepping into this rich and challenging tradition. To conclude this portion of his teaching, Jesus used two vivid metaphors: "You are the salt of the earth," and "You are the light of the world." Salt, in ancient times, was a valuable preservative. It kept food from spoiling and symbolized God's enduring covenant with his people. By calling the crowd the salt of the earth, Jesus was saying they had a crucial role in preserving and renewing the world. Light, on the other hand, illuminates and guides. Jesus described them as a city on a hill, a beacon that cannot be hidden. Though they were humble and overlooked, they were to shine God's light into the darkness, showing the world what his kingdom looks like. At its core, Jesus' message on the hillside wasn't just a set of moral teachings. It was a declaration of a new reality. The Beatitudes, as this section is often called, outlined a kingdom where the least are the greatest, and the values of the world are turned upside down. This wasn't a revolution of power or politics, it was a transformation of the heart. Jesus was inviting his followers into a movement that would change not just their lives but the entire world. It was a call to reimagine who God is, who we are, and how we are meant to live in relationship with one another. The challenge for those hearing Jesus' words, and for us today, is to live out this radical vision. It's easy to admire the Beatitudes from a distance, but embodying them requires courage, humility, and faith. It means showing mercy when it's easier to judge, seeking peace in the face of conflict, and hungering for justice even when it feels out of reach. Jesus' message continues to resonate because it speaks to the deepest longings of the human heart, the desire for a world where love and justice prevail, and where everyone is valued as a child of God. As Jesus concluded this section of his teaching, he left the crowd with a powerful sense of purpose. They weren't just spectators in God's plan, they were participants. Through their humility, mercy, and peacemaking, they would embody the kingdom of heaven on earth. And that invitation remains open to us today. The Sermon on the Mount challenges us to live differently, to see the world through the lens of God's love, and to be agents of his kingdom wherever we go.